Pizza people, welcome back. I have a hot and steaming cheesy deck for you today. That's right. It's red deck wins. And oh, does this deck win? I had no problem ranking up to diamond with this deck very quickly, actually, in just a couple of hours. I think this deck is fantastic, and I think you should try it for Explorer. You can definitely try it in any of our Explorer events that we're actually starting to have next month. So let's get down to this deck list. We got 4 Fanatical Firebrands, 1 red for a 1/1 with haste. You can sacrifice it to deal 1 damage to any target, so you can end up sniping a Llanowar Elf or any problematic 1 toughness creature. We have 2 Foundry Street Denizens, 1 red for a 1/1. Whenever another red creature enters the battlefield under your control, it gets +1/+0 until end of turn. You can set up a lot of turns where you can have multiple creatures coming into play, and it ends up buffing up the Foundry Street Denizen. For 1 mana, this card can actually hit pretty huge, especially if we get one of our 2-drops here, which we'll get to in a moment in multiples. The next card that we have is Kumano Faces Kakazan. When this card actually comes in, it's a saga. It comes in and deals 1 damage. That's the first chapter. The second chapter, whenever you cast your next creature spell, this turn, that creature enters the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter. And then you get to exile it and flip it. It comes back as a 2/2 with haste. And whenever a creature dealt damage this turn by a source you control would die, exile it instead. So Etchings of Kumano, just a really, really strong card that actually came out of Neon Dynasty. It kind of helps fill out the curve a bit, where you can play this, deal a point of damage, and then go into one of your 2-drops, like a Robber the Rich, which we're running 4 of here. And it'll actually come in with an additional +1/+1 counter and be able to just deal lots of damage and kind of just snowball from there. And then the fact that you get another creature from it later, it flips into a creature, excuse me, is actually just super strong, because you can kind of set up some turns where you're dealing damage, you're setting up one of your other 2-drops as a bigger threat, and then you slam down the Ember Cleave and just deal lots of damage. But we'll get to the Cleave here in a little bit. So Robber the Rich, colorless and a red 2/2, reach haste. Whenever this card attacks, the defending player has more cards in hand than you. Exile the top card of their library. During any turn you attack with a rogue, you can cast that card and spend mana as though we're mana of any color to cast it. Card is phenomenal. You can kind of just run away with the game, take some cards from your opponent, even end up doing some of the strategies that your opponent's doing if your opponent is playing a more tribal themed deck. So that's kind of interesting. Just a strong card overall, helps with the curve. We have a couple carry Zebs here, colorless and a red for a 1/3. First Strike Menace is a legendary creature as well. Whenever it attacks, you get to create Ragavan. Wait a second. Are we playing Ragavan in Explorer? I mean, I guess. A little bit. Not Ragavan themselves. Let's not get carried away here. It's not Ragavan, but you do get to make a Ragavan token, and that kind of helps the damage get there. The Menace is great. You're always going to be able to at least get a point of damage in with this card. Or if you're able to kind of buff it with the Kumanos, it's even better, because it turns into a 2/4. It can attack, it can block, it has first strike, it has Menace, it makes a token, just does a ton of stuff that, I don't know, feels red but also isn't red at the same time. So just a really great card here as a 2-drop. Only want to play 2 of them though, because it's legendary. You don't really want multiples. It actually doesn't die as often as you think either. To kind of help our 2-drops here, kind of speed up the process, we actually have Burning Tree Emissary. Another card that used to get played in Standard of the past. This is actually just like an old Standard deck pretty much that's just super powered. Hybrid red-green, hybrid red-green, so 2 mana, 2/2. When it comes into the battlefield, you get a red and a green. So you can kind of chain these off and then end up with one of these 2-drops, and then even buff up the Foundry Street Denizen. You can essentially deal 6 damage with the Denizen on turn 2 if you get all 4 of these and another creature down. So that's actually pretty powerful. And you can actually deal a lot of damage if the last creature ends up being a robber. You can actually come in for 8. So really strong card overall. Definitely speeds the deck up kind of like in a combo-ish way. So I don't know. I've always loved this card. This card kind of just helps the deck really, really go off. We only have 2 Bone Crusher Giants just because it's not necessarily great in all matchups. That could end up changing, but I think right now I really like the fact that there's only 2, just because we're able to play some more of our more impactful 3-drops with the Ember Cleave in the deck. So Bone Crusher, 2 colorless and a red for a 4/3. Whenever it becomes a target of a spell, It deals 2 damage to that spell's controller, and you can actually play the first half of this card as an adventure, then putting it into the exile zone once the adventure part resolves. So we have Stomp, a colorless, and a red. Damage can't be prevented this turn, which actually does come up because there are some pro red cards in the format. This card deals 2 damage to any target card is just ridiculous. Almost always going to be able to kill something on turn 2, and then the fact that you get to play this as a 4/3 on turn 3, just card is a curve on its own, and just a powerful card to have in the deck. It's kind of the only real outright removal that we have outside of like a Fanatical Firebrand or the Chain Whirler. But yeah, just a powerful card overall. Like I said, we may end up playing more, but right now I kind of actually like the configuration of this deck. We also have 4 Annex Harden in the Forge, so colorless 2 red for a *3. This card's power is equal to the devotion that you have to red, so the mana symbols that you have in play. And whenever this card or another non-token creature you control dies, you get a 1/1 red satyr creature token with it can't block. If it had power 4 or greater, you make 2 of those tokens instead. Annex is just a really ridiculous card just because it helps you against board wipes. Any kind of Wrath of God effect, essentially like destroy all creatures. This card's just solid. You can play it down, they get Doomscar, and then you just get a bunch of tokens and kind of just keep the damage going. And then maybe even get to use one of your lands like the Castle Embereth to pump up your tokens and just still kill your opponent even after they board wipe. So Annex is great. Another big interaction that's actually the main reason for main decking this many Annexes and Embercleaves is the fact that once you have an Embercleave on the Annex, the game's usually over if you get to hit your opponent for damage. So that's a big thing in the deck. So we kind of have Burning Tree Emissaries as like a little bit of some combo. And we also have Annex for like the combo kill as well. So we have Chain Whirlers here to round out our 3-drops. 3 red, 3/3 first strike. Whenever it enters the battlefield, deals a damage to each opponent, each creature, and planeswalker they control. For anyone who remembers this card in Standard, it was quite absurd when it existed and doesn't have as many crazy matchups, but this card is still great in the main deck, being a 3-mana 3/3 first strike and kind of finishing off some cards after blocks, or even just playing in, kind of giving your opponent some really tough decisions when they want to block as well. Finishing off planeswalkers definitely happens with this card too. 4-drops, we got 3 Torbrins, 3 red, colorless, 2/4. If a red source you control will deal damage to an opponent or permanent they control, it deals 2 additional damage instead on top of the damage that it deals. So yeah, Torbin, just a great solid card overall. Kind of helps round out the curve. If you go 1-drop, 2-drop, 3-drop into Torbin, the game can kind of just like end outright if they don't have a way to deal with your cards or even the Torbin itself. Just a strong card overall. Makes all your 1 damage cards deal a lightning bolt, like a Firebrand, like a Chain Whirler. You can kind of just set up some completely absurd turns where you can just board wipe your opponent. Bone Crusher can also end up being lethal as just a 2-mana 4 damage spell to the dome ends up being pretty relevant. Also, the fact that it helps your Ramanap Ruins deal an additional 2 damage is great as well. To finish off the deck, we have our mainstay here in red, Embercleave, 4 colorless, 2 red, legendary artifact equipment. It has flash. It costs 1 less for each attacking creature you control, and when it enters the battlefield, you can already attach it to a creature that you control. That equipped creature actually gets +1/+1 double strike and trample. So with the Annex, like I said earlier, you can kind of just come in for 14 or 20 damage sometimes and just outright kill your opponent. With the Torben on top of the Embercleave, you're kind of just dealing all kinds of absurd damage to help you go over the top some of the life gain that is in the format. And overall, the fact that you can get like a 1-drop into a 2-drop and then maybe you can get to play one of these and then play the Embercleave on turn 3 is also very absurd. Like a Kumano's flipping or the Burning Tree having played an additional card. Even the Carry Zev by itself can get you the Embercleave on turn 3. So these are all some pretty big things to remember when playing the deck, and these are all just some very big things that your opponent's going to see if you end up playing this. So let's go over the lands here. We have a couple Castle Embereths to kind of help pump up your creatures. It adds a red. It comes in untapped if you already have a mountain out. 3 mana, tap it. Creatures you control get +1/+0 until on a turn. Just gives the deck some additional reach overall. 4 Denna the Bugbear, just a crazy good card in any mono red and just red decks overall. You're able to kind of just for 4 mana here make it into a 3/2. That whenever that attacks, you get a 1/1 red goblin. And on top of that, it comes into play untapped as long as you have 2 or less lands. So yeah, this card is just phenomenal overall, especially with like Torbrins or even the Founder Street Denizens. Considering it makes a goblin, you can kind of keep pumping these up. We have 14 mountains, and then to round out the lands, we have 4 Ramanap Ruins. It does add a colorless, so you do have to pay a life to add that red, but for 4 mana and you tap Sacrifice the Desert, it gets to deal 2 additional damage to each opponent. This actually gets around any type of hexproof if your opponent's trying to do that. And the fact, actually, it does not deal an additional 2 damage with the Torben, so I do apologize about that. It's just a colorless land. So you're not going to be able to do that, but the fact that this card alone is an additional 8 damage by itself is just phenomenal. You're able to just finish off your opponent like a lot quicker. So just so much damage main deck. You can kind of see incidental damage and kind of just having these huge aggressive starts where you're able to just take your opponent's life total down to 0 very quickly. For a sideboard here, we have 2 red cap melees to help against any type of red deck, or the fact that it deals 4 damage. We want to bring this in against anything that's 4 toughness. That's a problematic card. If it's not red, you do have to sacrifice land, but you're definitely able to take that if it's like a Righteous Valkyrie, anything like that. 3 Abrades to help against any artifacts, or additionally 3 damage to kind of clear the board a little bit if we need to post board. 2 additional Bone Crushers if we need to kill more things, or kind of just give us an alternative if we side out the Chain Whirler, just because Chain Whirler is kind of a little bit slower and not as effective against some matchups. We have 2 Chandras against control, or anything that we think we may end up being grindy, that we need some kind of just direct damage to the face with. Or it's just able to kind of just uptick until the point where you just get that emblem and then definitely just kill your opponent with a couple spells. We have 2 Lava Coils to additionally kill off anything that's 4 toughness and not have to worry about any drawback or anything specific. It is a sorcery, but it also has the upside of exiling as well. And we also have 4 Rolling Vortexes, which is just a slam dunk card in my opinion. This card is great. It's great against life gain. It's super powerful against control because you just play it, and let's say they do have like enchantment removal, then they kind of just have to waste that usually on this rather than killing one of your creatures, because sometimes it's actually like a spell that does both. But on top of that, I mean, it's just a clock. If you bring in all 4 of them and then have like 2 or 3 down, I mean, 3 damage a turn on your opponent's definitely just going to close out the game super quickly. But yeah, I mean, this card's also great against any kind of combo, like a fight rigging deck, or anytime that your opponents are trying to cast like free spells where they're not spending any mana on them. This card's just going to deal them an additional 5, so it definitely keeps that in the back of your opponent's head. Let's say that you're playing against like an ultimatum type deck, anything like that. I actually just think Rolling Vortex is potentially one of the best red sideboard cards ever printed. I just find myself bringing this card in all the time. It really turns the tables quickly. That 1 point of damage helps, and like I said, life gain is the bane of red, and this card definitely stops it. So, in my opinion, if you're not playing this card in any type of red deck wins variety, any type of burn variety, you're definitely making a mistake. Jam 4 of them. I really don't care what you have to do to play them, but I actually played this card in Modern, and the more that I played it, the more ridiculous this card got. So, I think it's just phenomenal across all kinds of formats. Play this card. It's great. As a red mage, I'm telling you, it's great. But yeah, this deck's really great. We're going to take it on the ladder right now and see what it does. Let's go. Jamming some games. Red deck wins. See if we can move up the ladder here. I like this deck quite a lot. It's pretty simple, pretty smooth. And the fact that I get to play Embercleave again is actually pretty awesome. Looks like we're getting matched up here. Hopefully we can get a decent open hand. On the draw here. Not ideal for red deck. This hand is actually pretty great though if we can get to do the thing here with our 3 Burning Tree Emissaries into the Robber the Rich. Maybe draw land for this Chain Whirler as well. But we're going to be able to put a lot of power on the board here against our opponent. Opponent also took a mulligan. Looks like they are on potentially a blue-white or maybe even an Esper deck. And they're just going to pass back to us here. So they do have mana open. We're just going to try to jam this Burning Tree Emissary. No response here from our opponent. Go ahead and try to jam all of our creatures here. And get a Robber the Rich down. Coming in for 2 damage. Looks like they don't have any response here. We'll grab a Narset from them. We'll see if they have a board wipe potentially for us here. Okay, Field of Ruin coming down. That can get rid of the Den of the Bugbear. Looks like our opponent's going to take their turn to actually do that. Go ahead and get a mountain out of our deck here. And we'll see if they have any other response for us. Looks like they do have a portable hole. We drew an Embercleave though. We'll go ahead and swing out. Playing the Embercleave onto one of these burning trees. Getting our opponent down to 8 damage here. Or excuse me, 8 life. And they could have a board wipe here. We'll see if they do. Just going to pass the turn. Could end up being a Settle the Wreckage. Oh, wow. Okay, they're actually just going to concede. So we're up against control. I think I'm okay cutting a Torbran. Bringing in a Chandra at least. Chainwhirler isn't necessarily the best in this matchup. I think we could probably just cut another one for a Chandra. We're on the draw. I'll actually just cut a land for a Bone Crusher here. That way, in case they have like a damage prevention type effect. Could also have a Guinea. I almost want to take out the other Chainwhirler. Rolling Vortex is actually not a bad option either, considering that it's just steady stream of damage, a card that they have to deal with. I kind of almost want to bring in another Bone Crusher, but... yeah, I think I'm okay just bringing in another one. It's kind of a 2-for-1 card, so... even though it's not, like, as aggressive as the Chainwhirler seems, still a 4-3 for 3 on curve isn't bad, so... I think that's okay. And we actually have a pretty decent opener here. 1-drop, 2-drop into the 3-drop. And then we can go and see if that's enough to beat down our opponent. The Annex is good protection against any sort of destroying board wipe. Go ahead and swing in with the Fanatical Firebrand. Gonna go get this Burning Tree into the Rob of the Rich. Come in for 3 more damage. Looks like our opponent's got another tapped land here. Go and get down this Burning Tree Emissary. Looks like opponent does have some form of a response, though. Go to get this Robber the Rich down. They may have the exile a card and put something into play that's lesser mana card, maybe. Go ahead and take an Ether Gust. Looks like our damage is actually just going to go through, so... it's kind of good to take a tempo play here. They do have a portable hole. Taking the Robber the Rich. And they're going to play their land and pass the turn back. We draw an Embercleave. Swing in for some damage first. See if our opponent has any response to this. They're going to go down to 13. We'll try to cast the Annex here. See if it resolves. And we'll pass the turn back. If they have a destroy effect, at least we'll get some tokens. From the Annex, a board wipe will give us 4 tokens as well. Make this Embercleave only costs 2 mana. Having this Ramonat Runes is also great just because it gives us a little bit of reach later in the game. Go ahead and play this Mountain. I'm actually just going to go straight to attacks here. We have 8 damage. This puts our opponent at 5. Okay, they could have a Settle. Okay, they have a March to exile it. So I think we're still just going to Embercleave here, use all of our mana. We'll cast the Kumano's second main phase. Annex does get exiled, but our opponent goes down to 6 life and 5 life now with the Kumano's. The Ramonap is 2 damage by itself. Essentially, opponent could be viewed at being at 3 life right now. They do have a Castle Arvindale to potentially block. And... trying to think of what we really want to do right now. This is only 4 damage. If we were to sacrifice these and do this. They do have a Settle the Wreckage. It's kind of rough. I think I'm just going to come in with both of these. Okay, they have Wandering Emperor, so they'll gain some life. Second main phase, we'll play the Ramanap, get the Fanatical Firebrand down. Shooting down the Wandering Emperor. Use our extra mana to equip the Fanatical Firebrand. And pass the turn back. And Kamanos is going to flip over, so it gives us a threat. Still have the runes as an additional 2 damage. Ooh, Baneslayer Angel. Seems pretty good right now. We can't really deal with it. We're going to have to just pass the turn back. Okay, they have a land. And a Teferi, so we'll see what they do with the Teferi. Kind of end up bouncing the Embercleave. Okay, they're just going to draw and untap a couple lands. See if they come in with the Baneslayer. They do not. I think I'm actually just going to deal them 2 damage here. I don't really have a reason not to. Drawing some lands, not good. I think we'll just... this will die straight up to this, so we won't even get the double strike. Kind of rough. I don't really think we can equip. I think we're just going to have to say go. Can't equip, can't attack. And they'll go ahead and draw a card off the Teferi. So opponent's looking like they're just going to stabilize here, I think. Need to draw maybe a Bone Crusher. Get a 1/1 token. And they're just going to pass. Get to untap a couple lands. Draw a card. Or excuse me, get to untap a couple lands. And we're drawing some mountains here. I think I'm just going to go ahead and just... Not sure if I want to concede just because we're just not really doing anything. Do 3 mountains. I think we can just pass it back one more time. But now that they have the Hall of the Storm Giants as well, it's going to be really hard to break through here. They're just going to keep passing every turn. Let's look at our sideboard. Don't really have anything that deals with the Bane, so I guess the Rolling Vortex. Yeah, we're kind of just done for here. Our opponent can kind of just attack. They could have been attacking. We just didn't really have anything there. Let's actually bring in a couple of these just in case. Helps us with the curve. It's really good with Torbran. Makes it so that they can't gain life. If we had it there, it would have been a pretty big help. Kind of just got stuck there, though. We definitely flooded out with like 8 lands out of the deck or something like that, I think it was. This hand's great. We have the Vortex coming down as well. Go ahead and get Fanatical. Punch him in the face for damage. I think we might want a Burning Tree into the Rolling Vortex, which seems kind of weird, but we could almost set up a turn where we... Yeah, either way we're going to get to... I'd rather just try to resolve this now and make them have to deal with it. Yep. Steady stream of damage. The Robber of the Rich just has haste anyways. Okay, they get a couple tokens, gain some life. Unfortunately, that gets through what we did. I think we'll just Annex here. And I'm just going to attack for 2. If they double block, we can just Fanatical one of them. Yeah. Just going to get a chump in. And we'll pass a turn back. Get to deal them a damage here. Could have some more life gain for us, which would be a bit annoying, but could just try to keep up a red mana for the rest of the game. We need Embercleave off the top. Chandra. I think we'll just play Robber. Just get this out of the way. Get a token. And smash in. Could have done that at end step last turn, but I kind of wanted to have some more options in case we wanted to do something else. So we have the Vortex in case they do try to gain some life. Annex protects against like a Wrath of God type effect if they have like a Doom Scar. We just get a bunch of tokens right now. Okay. Burning Tree. Burning Tree does not get us to the Chandra. I'm wondering what they could have if maybe they do have the Settle right now. Let's come in with these creatures. See if we can get something good off the Robber of the Rich. We hit a land. Did they just have a removal spell for the Annex? That's fine. I really would rather just play it safe here. Get them down to 5. This puts them down to 4. I'll say go. Keep up the mana just in case. Chandra is an extra 2 points of damage. Vortex is another 1. If we get a creature with haste, the Kumanos puts a counter on it. They do have the Doomscar here. Really hoping to draw a land for the Chandra. Okay, Annex is actually fine. I don't really have a problem with that draw. I guess... I would actually just rather play this. Just because we don't want to get blown out here by something random. If we tap out and then they gain life. I think I would rather just hold up the Vortex. Just in case. Kumanos flips next turn. Any land gets us a Chandra. Opponent's cycling here. They'll take another point of damage. Still haven't found another... Did they march? Kind of interesting, actually. They marched the other card. Okay, that's it. Should be it. We'll just uptick the Chandra. Deal our opponent 2 damage. No attacks. Upkeep. Deal him the last point off of the Vortex. Go ahead and take that match down. See you next one. Jumping back on the ladder into another game with Red Deck. Let's see if we can cleave our opponents. Had a pretty good game last match there. And we're going to be on the play, so all Red Decks love being on the play. Fortunately, I don't believe that we can keep this hand. It's kind of close, but having to draw 2 lands in a row is kind of rough. I actually like this. This is, seems pretty strong. Do we want both of the annexes, though, is the question. I don't think so. I think we just hope that we can draw Mountain and potentially a good 2-drop. And then a land for the annex. Kind of just got a lot of Kumanos coming down here. Okay, opponent plays a tap land. Wow, that was actually one of our best draws there. Go ahead and get this Robber the Rich down. Take a card off the top of our opponent's deck. Looks like they could be playing potentially a rogue or a party type deck. If we draw land, we'll probably play the annex. If not, I think the Kumanos might be in order here. Okay, we did not draw land. We will get the Kumanos to flip. Go ahead and attack our opponent here for some more damage. And let's see what they do. They could end up trading with the etching. If they do, we're happy with it. We're going to get 2 more here. And we'll go and put our opponent down to 9. We'll take a couple points of damage, but definitely worth it, especially if we can top deck a land here. And we'll see what they're up to. Looks like they could end up being like the human deck here, I believe. Athalia wouldn't necessarily be the worst thing against us, but Chain Whirler does just outright kill unless they pumped it up with the Luminarch, but looks like they're just going to go for the Human Lord here. Make it a 4/4, sounds about right. And Fanatical comes down. Could come in with the Robber, see how they trade. We'll also get another card off the top. Okay, Thraben Inspector. Okay, so let's play the Thraben Inspector first because we want to get the counter off of that. Or excuse me, the 2 counters off of that. And we'll pay life for this Fanatical Firebrand that's just going to shoot down their Lord here. And then we'll go and pass it back to them. Chain Whirler's kind of nice too because it could end up killing some of their X1s depending on if they put any counters on them. We also need to just top deck a land here. Fortunately, we didn't have a land in our last couple draws. But the cards we've drawn, we've been able to play and kind of been able to leverage our mana a bit here. Especially considering we just have like a 3/4 Thraben right now. Okay, Catilda. Okay, the ability costs 6 mana, so they're going to buff up the Thraben. Seems pretty decent. We do draw land, which is great. We're just going to come in with the squad here. No reason not to. We have a Chain Whirler to follow it up to kind of finish off any creatures that they... Okay, going to block there, make the trade. Wow, so yeah, we're going to use this Chain Whirler. Considering they didn't block with the Catilda there, that actually just works out really great for us here. Kill both of their cards, put them down to 3. And we still have this Annex as backup here for a potential just big beater. Or if we draw an Embercleave later in the game. We took that down though. That Chain Whirler is definitely great. I think we want these other 2 Bone Crushers. We can cut an Annex and a Torbran. May also want some other removal here. An Abrade or even the Lava Coils. They have General Kudrow. I think we do want the Lava Coils in case they end up having some bigger creatures. These Denizens get outclassed pretty quickly. Do we want the Abrades? We brought in more Bone Crushers, but their creatures could end up getting out of Bone Crusher range. Let's cut a Carry Zev and bring in 1 Abrade. That way we just have extra removal. We might want to cut some of that on the way back. Like if we end up losing this game and being on the play, then I think we may want to. But having just that extra bit of removal could take us farther. Especially considering that a Luminarch Aspirant could kind of start to get out of control. Our opponent's on the play too, so... I think this hand is keepable. It's not crazy. We obviously want to draw a Mountain. We could curve with the Kumanos. It really depends on what we draw here. They're going to get a Clue. That was actually just great. Yeah, we can definitely just Kumanos now. And then we can get this Robber the Rich down as a 3/3 haster. And if we top deck a Mountain, we'll be able to get the Annex into the Cleave. So our hand's shaping up well, but it really depends on if we draw a Mountain. Taking 1 damage here. We do top deck the Mountain, so we'll definitely play that into the Robber the Rich. Opponents potentially holding up either a kill spell or their Clue. See if we go to the combat phase, and it looks like they are just going to go ahead and crack that Clue, so we'll get in for 3 damage here. And we were actually even on cards there, so we didn't get a Robber the Rich trigger. They do get a Tracker down. I'm okay with it. Let's go ahead and play this. I think I'll play the Annex before. And I'm actually still going to come in with the Robber the Rich. If they want to trade their 3-drop, I'm okay with that. Next turn, we still have Cleave if Annex survives. Wow, and they actually take the damage. Okay, they just have Luminarch Gas Sprint. That's fine. And a Thraben. We have an Ember Cleave that is just going to be lethal next turn. They'll play a tap land, pump up their tracker, but we're not really worried about any of this. They get to come in for some damage, but we'll take it. We'll play a Ramanap. Get down our Robber the Rich. Attack with the squad and see how our opponent blocks. Double blocking there. And yep, we'll go ahead and just cast this Ember Cleave onto the Annex, killing our opponent. Go ahead and take this match down. And we'll see you next game. Playing some red deck here in Explorer. This format is actually pretty cool. Lots of different cards, different decks. So far in my short time playing it, I've definitely been enjoying it quite a lot, actually. Okay, we'll be on the play here. Hand is a bit awkward, but manageable. Considering that we have the Den as our turn 2 land to be able to play the Robber, and then still have mana to be able to Bone Crush something if we need to, even if this comes into play tapped on turn 3, is actually really nice. We're really hoping for an untapped land, though, so we can curve out and then cleave them on turn 4. Hit our opponent for 2 damage here, taking a Thieves Guild Enforcer. So it looks like we're playing against rogues. We'll actually be able to play that Thieves Guild Enforcer and maybe even get to mill our opponent if we draw some more Robbers of the Rich, right? That would actually be pretty fun. We did not top deck a land, but we do have this Bone Crusher to potentially kill something. If they have a Soaring Thought Thief, which they might, we'll get to take another card here. And it's a Soaring Thought Thief itself. And we'll go ahead and hit them for 2. And I'm actually just gonna... Do we just play? This is a rogue. Yeah, we'll go ahead and play a Soaring Thought Thief, actually. See if our opponent counterspells it or plays their own. Okay, they just respond with the Thieves Guild Enforcer. And we have a Chain Whirler next turn for this, and then we'll still be able to attack. And the Robber the Rich cards we'll be able to cast no matter what. Unless they kill both of our cards. But it looks like we're roguing out here against our rogue opponent, which is actually kind of interesting. So we draw a land. I don't think that we really want to Embercleave. It doesn't really seem like that crazy impactful. I think I'd rather just like attack to like bait our opponent into doing something and then killing their Thieves Guild Enforcer with the Chain Whirler. Or even the Bone Crusher if need be. Opponent is taking a time here. Trying to see any other information that we may have. We're just mostly trying to draw Chain Whirlers and Bone Crushers. I mean, that just seems good to me. Let's go ahead and try to come in for some damage. Mill our opponent for a couple cards. We'll get a Thieves Guild Enforcer. Maybe draw another one off their deck. Then we'll just have a lot of cards to play. We can Emissary into double Enforcer or even take a Ruin Crab if it's in their deck and kind of try to mill them back, which is a little bit funny. They may end up having a response here. Looks like we'll mill into the story. And a land. See how they block. If they block. I think I want to play the Thieves Guild Enforcer, which is weird. Or even the Bone Crusher on the Thieves Guild Enforcer. We can Emissary into these cards. I feel like they're just gonna counterspell. Could counterspell a Chain Whirler. That would feel kind of bad. Just gonna try this out. And they do have a Slither Wisp. Interesting card choice here. I'll go ahead and Burning Tree into this Stomp on the Slither Wisp. I feel like if they play that different, we actually wouldn't have gotten so much value this turn with the Burning Tree, but they didn't wait till the end step, which is kind of weird. They responded to this. We don't have any more cards from the Robber right now, but we might be able to get one next turn. We have a lot less cards if we play our spells. We also have an Embercleave that's potentially just going to come down. Okay, interesting. They're milling us here. Okay, 2 mana open still. We have 4 cards in the graveyard if they have Drown in the lock. We can still cast this Embercleave, and we have a Robber the Rich. I think I'd rather just come in for some damage here and see what they do if they have a response. They just have another Thieves Guild Enforcer. Okay. That does get to buff all theirs up, which is cool. Okay, Fatal Push. And I'm swinging. Swinging out with the team. See how they trade. Want to block there. See if they block here. If not, then we kind of just deal them a huge chunk of damage here. Going to get this Embercleave down on the Robber the Rich. And we'll get them down to 4 life. Still have this Chain Whirler. Obviously, it's not going to kill these anymore, but I think it's okay. Still a damage spell. And a 3/3 first striker. Opponent's pretty much tapping out here. Could have a Fatal Push for us. Don't really mind it. Still have a lot of other things going on. I think we do want the other Bone Crushers, though. Not sure if we want anything else. Can cut an Annex and a Torbran. Do we want the Chandras? I don't believe so. Do we want the Vortexes? I don't think so either. Maybe an Abrade or two. I mean, we could bring in the Chandras. Like, it's a serious threat that they have to deal with, but it also costs 4 mana. I don't really think that's what we want to do. I almost want to just bring an extra card in that's removable just in case, just for the off chance that we have an extra card to not get milled by. I think I'll just try it like this. Normally don't go 61, but we'll do it. And we're gonna have another awkward hand. Not really getting some mountains here. Kind of rough a little bit. I think we'll keep it though. I mean, we can start off with the tap land into the Robber the Rich, which, yeah, we're just gonna have to do that. See what our opponent has here for us. Gonna pay 2 life. Probably pass. Ooh, Thoughtseize. I feel like they're just gonna take the Embercleave or a Bone Crusher. One of these two are probably the choice. We have 3 Robber the Riches. I mean, if they want to take one, I don't really care. They have less cards than us, so the Robber isn't going to be too crazy effective. Do they have another Thoughtseize? I think they have a Thieves Guild Enforcer. We're going to get to curve out a little bit here with the Kumanos into this, and then maybe even get down the Bone Crusher as a creature, or we can set up a Kumanos and then hold up the Bone Crusher for something. Really depends on what our opponent does on this turn and their turn. So they do have the Thieves Guild Enforcer. 3 cards in the graveyard. They're going to come in for the damage. They're not blocking. We draw a mountain, which is great. I think we do just play another Robber the Rich here. And we have a Kumanos to kind of get them both to draw some cards if we need to. I think I'm just going to redraw that. It seems kind of weird, but I actually think that card's really useful, and we have enough mana for all of them. Like this plus the Bone Crusher. And it's going to become a 3/3 with haste, so I kind of just like all these things at once. Put our opponent down to 11. They have 3 cards left. They did draw land. They might end up Fable Passaging here. They can't enter the story yet. We're going to take a damage. They're not blocking. And our opponent's actually just going to scoop it up because it just seems like they're just in a really bad spot, honestly, for them overall. Not even knowing what we have in our hand. Like, a Kamana's going to flip. We have another Robber the Rich. Or, excuse me, we have the +1/+1 counter, and the Robber Rich going to come down. And then, yeah, we have the Bone Crusher they don't even know about. So we just have tons of value, and the deck's kind of just going off. Kind of funny to do rogues against rogues. So, that was a fun match, and we'll see you in the next one. Alright, going in with the red deck here. Gotta believe in the cleave, you know? Sometimes you just gotta believe in the cleave. So far, our little hasters are doing good too. See if we can kind of keep that going here. And we're on the draw. Hand is not good. We have to mulligan too many lands. This hand is actually fantastic. I think we'll just put the Chain Whirler back just because it's a 3-drop, and right now we kind of just have a lot of gasoline going on with this. Torbran. Torbran's fine. We just need mana for it eventually. Luckily the cleave is discounted, so get to do that if we top deck a land here at some point. Come in for 2, and we'll take land off the top of our opponent's deck as well. So if we draw a land, we're definitely slamming the Annex here and then try to come in for the Embercleave on turn 4. And they just have a Stomp. Unfortunately, Stomp is actually really good against us. We're going to get a Burning Tree into this Carry Zev. And come in for 2 damage, getting our opponent down to 16. We still have a lot of power on the board, and this Carry Zev could potentially get this Embercleave down for us next turn. Looks like it is. They just have a Fable here. We do draw the land. I think I'm still just going to come in for damage. And see how our opponent blocks, if they block. Do we want to play the Annex? This is 7. Nah, let's just go in for more damage. Gotta just come in for max damage. Puts them down to 5. The Carry Zev is 3 by itself. They could end up having like a Meat Hook, but the Meat Hook actually doesn't kill 2 of our cards. It only kills the Burning Tree. It would gain them a life. Looks like opponent's ditching expensive Planeswalkers, Chandra deck. Do they just have a 5-mana board wipe? They could. Okay, they have Fires of Invention. Ooh, and we're going to lose all of our cards, actually. We'll go ahead and play this Annex down. Not sure if that's going to be enough. They'll go ahead and get their Fable. That was the reason for potentially playing the Annex. We wouldn't have been able to kill our opponent, though. Just because we wouldn't have the mana for the Cleave to be on the battlefield. Okay, opponent's just going to go for a cycle here. And they have 2 mana, or I guess they have a lot of mana left. 4 mana, technically. Okay, they'll play Bone Crusher. And we'll see if they have something else for us here. Can't do anything at instant speed. So if they're going to do something, they have to do it now. Okay, they do just have a removal spell here. And we'll get 2 creatures. Didn't draw a land, though, for the Torbran. We do have a Bone Crusher. I think we'll just Bone Crush the Reflection. Kind of have to think about this. We're at 18. We can put them down to 6. Put the Bone Crusher. The Stomp. I don't think that that's enough. I kind of just like... Denizen and stomping the Reflection. And we have 3 creatures. I mean, the Castle Embereth will be decent at least. They have a tap land. We'll see what else they have now that they have 5 mana. And okay, they just have like a removal spell here, and then they'll just get to cast it. That seems pretty decent. Want to top deck a land here. And we do, so we'll just play the Torben. They have to block both of our cards. Or else they take lethal here. They will gain 2. So they do go back up to 8. And they have 1 card, so they'll draw a card here. We'll see what they draw. Or we'll see what else they have, considering they played both of their spells last turn. They actually don't have anything. Kind of just like Chain Whirler here. Not putting all of our eggs into one basket. And then coming in for 4 damage with the Torben. They'll chump block with the Hive of the Eye Tyrant here. And we have a lethal Embercleave. Even the Castle Embereth with our attackers just kind of just fine. They just have another Fires of Invention, and we just have lethal without even equipping the Embercleave. What do we want to bring in against them? A little bit of a slower, grindy deck. I actually like these Rolling Vortexes if they have some life gain, which they might be bringing in against us. Probably cut an Annex and a Torben again. I don't really see Chain Whirler being like a crazy good card against them, actually, so I kind of like the Annex over the Chain Whirlers. Question is do we want to cut more of them for the burn? Maybe we do. Can bring in the Bone Crushers instead. I'm not sure. I really do like the extra damage, but I feel like this might end up being better. Just having more removal against the Fable. And some damage, or if they try to gain life. Could make an argument maybe keeping the other Torben then. We're on the draw. That was the only card that we saw. They have Chandra's. I guess I like keeping the Torben in case we kind of curve out and then just have like a really good turn with it. Could just kill them out of nowhere or just outright just kill them on the spot. And this actually looks like that type of hand where we're curving out. Kumano's for sure. Into a Robber the Rich, hit them for 3. They could end up having a Thoughtseize here, though, to foil our plans. Looks like they don't. Maybe just a removal spell. We do draw the second copy of Torben, which is upsetting considering that we thought about cutting one of them, and it looks like it might end up being right. Maybe for a Chain Whirler. See if we can take down this game. Oh, wow. We're actually just going to go ahead and get stomped there. And we actually can kill the Bone Crusher next turn and keep the damage going. I actually think we're just going to do that. That seems really stellar. So we'll go ahead and just shoot this down for 2. Play the Fanatical Firebrand. Finishing it off, and then hit our opponent for 5 damage, drawing another card off of the Robber the Rich. Okay, put them down to 11. And they just play Fires. What else do they have? And a Chandra, probably killing the Robber the Rich, is my guess. Yep. We have another Robber the Rich. I actually think we're just going to put our opponent down here. Don't really have a reason not to. They have to deal with the Torben. If not, then they're kind of just dead. Chandra's going to be pretty decent here because it does give them a redraw, but I'd rather just try to kill them instead. If we draw a land, we have the option of using the Ramanap, which is just 4 damage by itself. Alright, well, unfortunately, they do get the draw spell there, or the kill spell there off of the Chandra. And they have another kill spell for the Kumano. But they can't do anything, right? Okay, so I think we're just going to go for Robber the Rich and a Carry Zev. We'll try to draw a card off the Robber the Rich. I'm actually just going to kill the Chandra now. Oh, we got a Fable. That's actually pretty decent. Chandra is going to die, so they don't get any more redraws off of that. We have lethal if we get to our turn and get the cast the Storbrand. Our cards don't die. Obviously, a lot of things still have to go right. Ooh, Chandra's going to wipe the board. Yep, seems pretty decent. And they're going to go ahead, Den of the Bugbear, put us down to 11, excuse me. Okay. We have a Torbran. Yeah, I think we tap out for the Torbran. We are at 10, but I'm actually not too worried. If they have a removal spell, we're kind of done for. Yeah. Now I'm worried just because they were able to kill that, so we're not in a good spot anymore. And they have a Bone Crusher. Go ahead and rumble with the land here. Put us down to 5, and I think that might be the end of us here. We got pretty close on the race there. We'll go down to 5. Fanatical Firebrand is not going to do it. We could Bone Crusher to block here. Could also still block the Den of the Bugbear and even shoot down one of the tokens. But they also have the Chandra, so the Chandra is actually just going to kill us. So we're going to have to move on to the next game here. And I think we're just going to keep the deck the same. We could still cut one of these. Yeah, I think cutting one of these for this is fine. Just being a little bit lower to the curve. That way we can kind of curve out a little bit better would be nice. We kind of just like... The second Torbran might have actually hurt us because we would have been able to Chain Whirler one of those turns potentially. I'm not sure. I think they just ended up stabilizing with removal spells, and maybe letting them have the Chandra for a turn might have been a really big mistake as well. Yep, we can go ahead and keep this hand. We're curving out with our Robber the Rich here. See what our opponent does. They could end up just having a tap land. If they have a Thoughtseize, it would actually be pretty devastating, but they do not. Hopefully we don't get flooded out here. We are going to get to redraw a card off the Robber, but it is just a land. So we'll see if we actually hit some cards we can play. Fortunately not. We'll see if we get to attack with the Robber the Rich. And unfortunately not either. So I'm going to just come in for 2 damage with this Kumanos and pass the turn back. Obviously we're just getting mana flooded right now. They do only have a Fable. Ooh, Bone Crusher is actually really good here. Did we just want a Fable Passage? I guess I'd rather just do this and make them have to deal with our cards still. And they are just going to trade with it. That's fine. Having a Bone Crusher is great because we'll be able to deal damage and get a threat, and then could potentially follow that up with our Den of the Bugbear. We may want to save the Stomp as well to be able to kill the Fabled, so maybe just coming in with the Den of the Bugbear on our turn is probably correct. Okay, they're going to play Nicol Bolas. We'll discard a Mountain. And we're going to go ahead and rumble. We can actually just shoot this down and hit our opponent for 4 and then play the Kumanos. I kind of like that, actually. Yeah, let's stomp this. We actually just play the Bone Crusher and hit our opponent for 4. So even if the Fable flips, they have to deal with what we're doing. If we draw land, we can Kumanos and Den of the Bugbear, which will be nice. Still keeping up a lot of pressure. Looks like they have a removal spell for us, maybe. But we'll go ahead and rumble in with the Den of the Bugbear here. And see what our opponent has up their sleeve. We'll get a token. And it looks like they just have a kill spell for the Torben. But they are going to go up to 14, which is problematic. They'll trade with the Den. We'll put them down to 9 and play this Kumanos. Putting them down to 8. We have another active Den of the Bugbear and this Castle Embereth to potentially keep some damage going. They could have fires, which will be a problem, but they'll only be able to play one more spell after that. Let's see what our opponent has up their sleeve. Vortex will be kind of an awkward top deck now just because we've gotten to this point of the game. Looks like they're going to make a 2/2 token and pass back. I think we're just going to keep rumbling in and we don't have a reason not to. If they want to take 4 off the Bone Crusher, they can. This puts them down to 2. And if they don't gain any life, the Ramunap Ruins actually kills them. They'll go ahead and discard and draw. Play their Den of the Bugbear. Bone Crush a token. Play a dragon. And we'll kill them all sorts of ways. We have the land, the Kumanos is flipping. And we actually were able to take down that match considering our opponent had some life gain and they had a good amount of removal. They struggled the second game. They still beat us. So kind of shows you how powerful this deck is, especially in the face of so much adversity that we kind of faced that game. So pretty sweet match. We'll see you for the next one. Jumping into some more games with Red Deck wins. Let's go ahead and see if we can pick up another win here. Hope for the old curve out into the cleave. You know, the good thing about Explorers, there's all kinds of different decks, so we don't even know what we could be playing up against, right? A lot of the time, in like, let's say, Standard, Alchemy, maybe even Historic, sometimes you can kind of see a lot of the same decks. I actually think this hand is okay. Okay, they just have a Lair the Hydra. Wow, this hand actually just got way better with the Kumanos, especially considering we're on the draw. So having the curve out into the cleave does actually help quite a bit. Opponent's taking some damage here. Incubation Druid. Interesting. Go ahead and get our 3/3 Robber the Rich down. Smash in for some damage. Get him down to 14. Pass the turn back. Opponent does have quite a lot of mana right now. And they'll get a Rishkar down. Putting counters on both of their creatures. The Incubation Druid does tap for 3 mana. And a Cultivate here, so our opponent's ramping quite a bit. Kind of worried that they have a Crater Hoof for us. So we may need to just kill them as fast as we can here. Do we just want to come in? Could Bone Crush and kill the Rishkar. Or even kill the Incubation Druid. That may end up being what the play is. Let's go ahead and come in with just the Robber the Rich here. Yep, gonna take it. And I actually think that this is right. Just to make sure that they don't get any more shenanigans going here. They will have 6 mana next turn, which is unfortunate, but if we draw a land, we have this Torburn or even the Embercleave, depending on what they do. Okay, Nissa, that still seems pretty good. They're going to go ahead and untap a land. And hit us for 3 damage here. So the Etchings is looking a little bit weak right now just because we don't have... I think we just want to cleave. And I'm actually just going to go ahead and attack our opponent here. I can hope that they block with the Lair, but they did not. Go ahead and get the cleave down here. We have a Torben next turn. So we'll deal our opponent 6, put them down to 5. And let's see what they do here. They are going to have quite a bit of mana. Get to untap their forest. Go ahead and use the Castle Garen break potentially. So they have a lot of mana. They still could Crater Hoof us. I'm not sure if that's going to be lethal. Ooh, I think it is, just because they'll get to have both of their forests. Okay, they're going to go up to 8. Get a Hydra. Seems pretty good. Luckily, we have a Torbran that kind of like gives us quite a bit of damage here. And the Chain Whirler's pretty good too, but we'll Torbran. I think we still come in with both. Go to get a card from the Robber of the Rich. Take a Ugin from them. That's actually great. We don't want to see that. We don't know if they have it in their hand either way, or they're going to top deck another one, but we don't want to see that. And it looks like they might have an ability here. Okay. So we'll go ahead and get them down to 4. We have a Bone Crusher in our hand, so if the Torben doesn't die, we actually just straight shoot them for 4 damage. Barring no life gain as well, considering that they could have life gain in their deck. They have another Rishkar here. We're at 11. Do we block the forest? They don't have that much mana left though, right? I guess they can Castle Garen break right now for 6. Ah, I see. Okay, yeah, so they can still untap anyways too. That's kind of dangerous. Do we block with the Torben? No attacks. Okay. So let's just go ahead and try to shoot them down for 4 here. See if this resolves. We also have an Ember Cleave. They're going to Growth Spiral, draw a card. And it looks like our Stomp is lethal. I think we may want to bring in more Stomps. The Chain Whirler seems okay if they play mana creatures, which they probably do. I think the Denizen is a little bit worse. Do we want the Bone Crushers and what else? A Braid seems okay. So does Lava Coil. I think we want these to try to burn them out a little bit. Do we keep the Annex in? I kind of like bringing in a couple of Abrades. Haven't seen any artifacts. I guess we're mostly just trying to kill their cards. Maybe we bring in the Coil is better because we could have the potential to kill the Dryad if it's a 2/4 still. I guess that's okay. Maybe we could even shave these and keep the Annex in. We didn't see any like Llanowar Elves, but that doesn't mean that they're not in the deck. But I think maybe we just go the opposite considering we didn't see them. So we can at least kind of keep the deck intact how it's supposed to be, where we're just trying to cleave them out. I feel like that's like one of our best bets to win the game as well. We're definitely going to keep this hand. We have a Bone Crusher on turn 2, 2 Den of the Bugbears for the late game. Going to go ahead and kill this Incubation Druid if they get it down. They do not. Go ahead and pass a turn back to our opponent here. They have a Growth Spiral, yep. And let's see what our opponent's up to on their turn, considering they're going to have 4 mana. Another Growth Spiral here, so they have an additional land drop. Boseiju coming down. And there's the Incubation Druid that we're just going to stomp. Go ahead and play this Bone Crusher on our turn, keeping the Chain Whirler in case they have any 1 toughness creatures, and the Bone Crusher is just higher power as well. Still have another Stomp in our hand just in case as well. Looks like they have a Growth Spiral here. And another Incubation Druid that we have a Stomp for, and an Arboreal. Grazer does not put a land into play. I think we're just going to come in for 4, see what our opponent does first. We're going to take the damage. Go ahead and stomp the Incubation Druid again. And pass a turn back. If we need to, we can start attacking with the Den of the Bugbear rather than cast some cards out of our hand, considering our land, or excuse me, our hand is actually like a bit flooded too, so. So they have a trade here with the Bone Crusher if they want. Completely okay doing that. We could also just rumble with the Den still. I think I'm actually just going to come in and see what they trade with. Probably just replace it with the other Bone Crusher. Wow, they actually just take the damage. So yeah, right now it just looks like we're Bone Crushing here. Still have the Den next turn, or even the Chain Whirler. Ramanap's kind of some reach there, an additional 2 points of damage eventually. Opponent has 3 cards left. They have 6 mana, 7 mana, 8. And a Hydroid Krasis for 6. Putting them back up to 15 as well. That seems pretty decent. Karizev is great. You have Karizev and Chain Whirler. Yeah, I actually think that's fine. Get some more cards on the battlefield. Unfortunately, we're kind of like a little bit on the back end here. Can't attack. Next turn, we do have quite a bit of attackers coming in. But opponent does have 4 cards. All we have is lands. I mean, you know, this game, unfortunately, we flooded out. It's a great example of, you know, what can happen when you draw all your lands. And we'll go ahead and take the Krasis damage, so that's actually kind of scary that they're attacking. They're feeling a bit safe. Maybe they just have another Krasis. It would tap them out, and we're able to come in for a ton of damage. We're just 1 Embercleave away from winning the game if they do that. We also can Den the Bugbear and Embercleave next turn if we draw it. So that's actually kind of absurd. It's quite a bit of damage. We're really just hoping to top deck that. Definitely just tapping the top of our deck here, hoping for the best. The opponent does have quite a bit of blockers here. If they're going to use that, I think we're just fine with it. Yep. And they have a 2/4. We draw Okumanos. It's not the card we needed, but we can come in for quite a bit of damage. We're not dead if they end up trading with a lot of their things. I actually think we're just coming face no matter what. So yeah, coming in, hitting our opponent here for some damage. They have 3 blockers. They're going to block the Bone Crushers, hopefully. Or they block the Den of the Bugbear there. Yep, we still have another Den, so it doesn't even really matter too much. We actually get away with dealing them more damage. And we'll go with Kumanos here, put them down to 5. We have a Ramanap that deals 2 damage. And if our opponent gets a bit greedy with the attack, they kind of just have the potential to lose the game. Bone Crusher, Embercleaves off the top would be phenomenal. All these cards work out great. Could have another Krasis here, though, which would gain them quite a bit of life. So it's going to be 7 life here if they do it. Yep. Or excuse me, 6 life. Going back up to 11. We're really just hoping that they attack us here. They're still going to have a lot of blockers. We need the cleave. Even if we have the cleave, it's not a guarantee that we win. They just have so many blockers. And let's hope that they attack here. Just attack him with that. Could get in with the land for free because it has vigilance. But it doesn't really make a difference considering that we kind of just need to top deck a card now or we're just dead. See what we draw here. Still tapping the top of our deck, hoping for the Embercleave. Let's hope. Ooh, they just make more blockers. So even if we had the Ember Cleave, it actually wouldn't have made a difference. And they're also going to go back up to 19. So we really got to try to finish the game as fast as we can here. I don't think Chain Whirler is really going to do it. We could play the Vortexes, I guess, considering we just don't want all these. Could cut these. Maybe keep the Torben in. Or do we want removal? Could bring in an Abrade. Yeah, let's do that instead. Just bring in something to kill their cards extra. That way we probably have a higher chance of just having a removal spell earlier in the game to get rid of a threat and kind of keep some damage going. Could have also brought in the Denizens back in, but I actually think this is fine. We have a Bone Crusher and then potentially a Cleave on turn 3 or just the Lava Coil. Opponent also mulliganed. Oh wow, that's actually just the perfect draw. And we'll go ahead and get a Robber the Rich down. Attack our opponent for 2, get to draw a card off the top of their deck. Looks like they just get a land. Or excuse me, they had a land. If they play a mana creature, we can just Bone Crush it and keep the damage going. And I actually think that's what we're just going to do here. We can kind of hope to draw maybe like a 1-drop or something we can play. Looks like we just hit another land off of their deck here. Down to 14. We have Cleave and a Bone Crusher next turn. They have a 2/4, but we do have a Lava Coil for that. And a tap land. So go ahead and coil that. Gonna attack our opponent here for 4. And pass the turn. I guess we should have played that Den first. That was definitely a mistake on my end there. They have Incubation Druid. We have Ember Cleave. And we also have Den of the Bugbear. I think we're just going to come in with the Den right now. And then try to Ember Cleave them next turn. I'm not sure if this is right, but this is already quite a bit of damage. Yeah, this puts them down to 3. They have 2 cards left. They have a Lair of the Hydra that can block. But we have an Ember Cleave here that could potentially be lethal. They have a Rishkar. And let's see what their last card is. If it's a plain white... Well, I guess they couldn't cast it off the Castle Garenbrig. So they have 2 blockers, and we have Cleave. I think that we're in the clear here. Okay, we have a land. So even if we... I mean, if we attack... They're kind of just dead all around, right? Yeah, they're kind of just, like, dead all around. Do we just cleave them here? Go for the cleave finish? Yeah, let's go for the cleave finish. Attack them all out here. See how they block. Just go ahead and cleave. Onto the Robber the Rich. That's just going to be lethal. Go ahead and take that match down. Gotta believe in the cleave. See if we can keep it rolling with the red deck. Cleaving it up. Let's go. Alright, let's hope that we get a good opener here. Ooh, we're on the play. That's fantastic. And a good draw. Let's go. 1-drop into 2-drop into potential 3-drop. Do we want to play the Carry Zebs as a 2/4? I think I just like the damage from the Robber the Rich. It's quite a lot. Carry does add up. But 3/3 is better, I guess. It's kind of hard. I guess this is 4 damage. I think I just like getting the Robber the Rich down here and just coming in. Kumano's is going to flip next turn, so either way we just have a steady stream of damage. Looks like we're playing against an Angel type of deck, so we may end up having a hard time here. Okay. Giada coming down. We'll flip the Kumanos. We'll actually see if our opponent wants to make the trade first. Ooh, and we get to take another card here. And then we'll go ahead and just shoot down the Giada. I just think that that's correct. We don't want them to just keep that going. Even if they Valkyrie here, we're still able to attack with both of our creatures. Or excuse me, the Robber the Rich at least. Kind of hold up potentially some form of like... threaten some kind of damage here. Ooh, and we get a Resplendent Angel as well. That's great. So they'll make a block there. I think that we actually just want to cast 2 spells here. It seems kind of weird, but I like it. So they are probably going to gain some life. If they have another Valkyrie, it's definitely a huge problem. We need to draw an Embercleave stat. Wow, they're actually going to go to 9, but then they'll go back up to 10. And then do they have another creature here? And they'll gain another 1. Or excuse me, 2, because that gains a life when it comes in. Chain Whirler would also be fantastic. Bonecrusher is actually like great. We can still come in with the team. Bone Crush the Valkyrie when it blocks. Oh, we get another Linvala. Wow, that's great. See how they block here. This is a lot of damage coming in. We have another 2 here. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Almost lethal. So they're going to block like that. I'm actually just going to go ahead and shoot this now. Get to trade with one of their cards. And I'm actually just going to play the Linvala because it actually pumps up our Valkyrie. And it makes all of our cards indestructible, so they can't just like board wipe our creatures away. And we were actually able to take that down because of the Robber the Rich. Kind of just gave us a steady stream of like solid cards and our removal. Definitely going to bring in the Lava Coils, an Abrade, and a Bone Crusher to start. I think we want these. Can cut the Annex. I don't know if Chain Whirler is that great, honestly. Like, if they have a slow start, it's good, but I don't even know if it's worth having it in there. I think the Denizen is just kind of medium. Do we just want to cut the Chain Whirlers and bring in more removal? So we can cut these, bring in a Bone Crusher and an Abrade, or even the Red Cap melees. Maybe we bring in the Red Cap melees because they just outright kill something no matter what. We can just sack a land to kill it. I kind of almost want the other Annex just because we're kind of a little bit weird here. I guess the Robber is a little bit worse on the draw. We're looking a little bit more like a big red deck. But I'm going to try this out and see if it works. I guess we could have also cut like a Fanatical Firebrand maybe and kept the Robber the Rich in. That might have actually been a better choice. But the Fanatical does help with like dealing a lot more damage eventually, so okay, Red Cap melee, Fanaticals, and some other things. I think we're pretty good here. If we draw land, we got the Annex to keep the damage going, and that Embercleave is definitely what we want to see because it's gonna help us end the game a lot sooner. Opponent does have a slower draw here. We're gonna get the Carry Zev. We actually have kind of a slow draw too, if you think about it. We only really dealt 1 damage, but the fact that we get a Carry Zev down as a 2/4 and it has potential to just do more things is great. And we're definitely just going to Lava Coil this Bishop to get it out of the way. We have a Red Cap melee to kind of get some more things out. Obviously, the Red Cap hurts if we have to sacrifice a land, but wow, we actually made our opponent concede there and ended up in diamonds, so red deck definitely wins. You can definitely see the true power of this deck. I mean, if your opponents just have like a slow start and you're just like punching them super hard. I mean, if we top deck a land, we're just going to cleave them and the game's almost over next turn. So yeah, I mean, the power of this deck's definitely there. I think that this is going to be a great choice in Explorer. And I think that when we have our own Explorer events, this is going to be a great choice as well. And we're here for the post game. Red deck wins. We did actually win quite a lot with this deck. Our record with it was actually super solid. 12-5. You can find the link to the statistics in the description below. But yeah, we kind of just like rolled our way really easily into Diamond, and we'll see if we can actually get to Mythic with this deck, but this deck is phenomenal. I think you should definitely play it in Explorer. I also think you should play it in any tournaments that we have, because I can definitely see this deck taking down an event really quickly. It actually just has game against a lot of different things. The decks that we lost against were kind of just like grindy, mid-range control decks, not really too like out of the ordinary for this deck to lose against, and there was also some life gain in between, so life gain definitely is going to make this deck have some problems. The rolling vortexes do help against that, but I think in the times they had it, we didn't have our rolling vortexes, so it actually just ended up blowing us out, but or at least keeping them in the game to the point that they could turn it around. We also lost against a Baneslayer, I think it was at one point, so just a lot of random stuff that you could end up losing to. I'm not sure if there's anything that you want to bring in the sideboard, potentially to combat those cards, but I actually think where this deck is with this configuration is actually pretty phenomenal. You don't really want to play 4 of any of these cards because they can kind of just end up hurting you in the long run when you end up drawing 2 or 3 of them. The Torban, you can almost even go down. I have seen lists that play 4, so I'm not sure. Bone Crushers, like I stated earlier, you might even want to go up and in the right meta, but I actually think that this deck's just so good. It's just so smooth, and you don't really run into mana problems unless you kind of just get mana screwed or mana flooded. So I always really enjoy the mono decks, especially in formats where potentially your opponents are trying greedy mana bases, and this could be another format where some players are in that position. So playing a deck like this, getting under control decks even, is just solid overall. I just think you should bring this deck to any of our events. Bring this deck to the ladder. Definitely give it a try. If you made it this far, I really appreciate you watching the video, watching the content. Subscribe to the channel. Be really appreciated. If you would also like the video, maybe even leave a comment down below talking about maybe even the deck or just hanging out with us in general. Be greatly appreciated. We're going to go ahead and have a tournament this Sunday. It's actually historic, free to play with cash prizes. So definitely check out all the links to my content, all of our tournaments, the deck lists, and stats down below in the description. And I hope to see you next time. Stay cheesy.